I simply couldn't contain the rage within me, especially towards my wife, Mary. I am Joe Thompson. How did I know she was seething with anger? She was pressed against the car door, keeping as much distance from me as possible, her face bearing an expression that could curdle milk. Why was she so furious? I surmised she had ample reason, as I had severely disrupted her plans. I felt utterly terrible because I had embarrassed my wife, the partner of our 10-year marriage, and the mother of our 3 children. What did I do to embarrass her and foil her plans? I grabbed the wrong set of keys. The McLarens are our neighbors who often throw some really wild parties. Mary had been eager to attend, and she had secured an invitation through an indirect connection. We had never been to their parties before, but my wife, the woman I've been married to for 10 years, didn't tell me in advance that this party was different. She didn't tell me in advance that at this party, all the wives were supposed to throw their house keys into a bowl, and then the husbands would randomly pick a key and take the corresponding wife to the master bedroom for an evening of impure pleasure. As the party was about to end, I suddenly realized what was about to happen, and I felt very scared. I had never been so angry with Mary before. I grabbed her arm and led her into the kitchen. "Did you know this party would end this way?" I asked her. She sneered at me. "Yes, you didn't think to tell me before," I demanded. "No," she said, "because I knew you wouldn't agree unless you had to." "I would never agree, and I always have a choice." "Let's leave," I said firmly. "We can't leave now," Mary protested. "It would be impolite, and it's just for one night. It will add some excitement to our marriage." "I don't need that kind of excitement." "Let's go," I said resolutely. Mary tried to resist, but I let go of her arm and walked towards the bowl filled with keys. I was not informed of the rules for this part of the party. I announced loudly to the people gathered around the bowl, "I will not share my wife with any of you." I searched for the keys until I found the one with the red plastic cap, the key to our house, and I held it up for everyone to see. I was not informed of the rules in advance, and I do not believe in deception. My marriage vows mean everything to me. Some people grumbled and cast angry glances at me, but I didn't care. I looked at my wife, who was blushing with embarrassment, and said angrily, "Mary, you now have a choice. You can come with me and forget all this madness, or you can stay and never come home again." "I'm leaving." All eyes turned to my wife, who hesitated for a moment, then said, "I'm sorry for my husband's behavior." She said to everyone, "I was willing to stay, but given the circumstances, it's better for me to leave." Angrily and reluctantly, she followed me to the car. "You're such a selfish jerk," she yelled at me as soon as we got in the car. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We'll never be invited back." "Embarrass you, Mary?" I retorted. "What about you planning to be with someone else tonight and embarrassing me?" "Well, you were going to be with another wife too, so we would both have fun," she said. "I don't want to be with another woman, Mary," I said. "I'm only for you, and hearing that you want to be with someone else after 10 years of marriage makes me uneasy." "Just once, Joe," she said, "out of all the nights we've spent together, just one night with someone else. Isn't that reasonable after being a good wife for 10 years? I slammed on the brakes, made a U-turn on the street, and rushed back to the McLaren's house. Mary screamed as I turned. "What are you doing, Joe?" "If spending a night with another man is so important to you, Mary, then go ahead," I said. "Stop." In front of their house, it looked like all the other cars were still there. It seemed you hadn't joined too late. I said, "Get out and enjoy your night with some stranger. I hope he can satisfy you in ways I can't." "Just some new adventure," she said, reaching for the car door handle. "You're perfect for me, but you know I can't go in alone. We both have to participate, each with a new partner." "I've already said I don't want to participate, Mary," I said. "I've never cheated on you, and I won't until we're no longer husband and wife." "What does that mean?" she asked, her tone softening. "It means exactly what I said," I replied. "It's time to make a decision, Mary." She hesitated, and I knew she was thinking deeply. "Will you pick me up tomorrow morning?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You know where I end up." "I'll call you and tell you it's significant to me." "No way," I said, my voice cold and hard. "I believe your new guy will give you a ride after spending the night with you." "You're making it sound terrible, Joe," she said, tears filling her eyes. "He won't be my lover, just someone I spend the night with." I love you, Joe. You're the only man. Do you really believe that, Mary? I asked, my voice full of doubt. There's no way you love me and still do what you planned. Let me figure it out. You just want to find a new person for intimacy, right? You want a new man to get you pregnant. That's harsh, Joe, she said, tears spilling over. You know I'm on birth control, so I won't get pregnant. Just one night with a new person, it will be exciting. I won't let you ruin my night, Joe, she said, her voice now more resolute. I just want a little new time with you, and you won't stop me. I'm going to continue, and you need to accept it. Understood? I'll be back tomorrow morning, and I'll make you forget all of this, she said, her voice filled with feigned confidence. You will still want me, Joe. I won't want you after allowing another man to have what I thought was only mine, I said, my voice filled with pain and betrayal. You're talking nonsense now, Joe, she said, her voice filled with annoyance. I belong to you, and you will still want me. I'll make sure of it. Mary, listen to me, I said, my voice filled with urgency. If you go back to that house, we are done. Your one night will cost you your marriage and your family. No, Joe, it won't, she said, her voice filled with feigned confidence. We are married, and we will stay that way. We are meant to be together. I love you, and I know you love me too. We will get through this. You are breaking my heart, Mary, I said, my voice filled with pain. Don't be so dramatic, Joe, she said, her voice filled with irritation. Think of it as me going on an adventure. It's an adventure for you, but for us, it's over, I said, my voice filled with finality. She opened the car door and began to get out. I will see you tomorrow morning, Joe, her voice filled with feigned confidence. I sadly shook my head as she pushed the door shut, and I stepped on the gas, speeding away, leaving skid marks half a block long. I took one last look at her in the rearview mirror as I sped down the street. She looked utterly shocked, standing there with her mouth open, not moving, as I turned the corner and she disappeared from sight. I hoped she would call me right away, admitting she was wrong, asking me to come back for her, but she didn't. Oh, she probably thought I would be angry for a few days, and then she could smooth things over by taking me to bed. Well, she was completely wrong. My father always said that if a woman is considering cheating, she has already crossed the line in her mind, and if a married woman is seriously considering it, she has already broken her vows. It's okay to appreciate someone, but if she is plotting how to make it happen, she has already betrayed you, just as this hurt Mary. It ended our marriage, and it's time to move on. The real tragedy is our 3 children, 9-year-old Jenny, 8-year-old Rachel, and 4-year-old Joey. How can I imagine a life without them every day? But I can't let Mary's actions go without consequences. The children spent the weekend with my mother, giving me time to figure out my next steps. I drove aimlessly for a while, still hoping Mary would call for me to pick her up, but it was clear she had made up her mind. I finally decided on a plan and drove home. Just as I pulled into the driveway, my phone rang. I hoped it was Mary asking me to pick her up, but the caller ID said otherwise. I answered anyway. There was loud music and laughter in the background, and a man's voice said, "Hey, Joe, it's Mike from the party. You gave me Mary's number, and she's really excited about tonight, hoping you can join in too. You're a lucky guy. Every man here wishes they had her key. She's been saying someone is going to have an unforgettable night. Come back and join us. There are some hot chicks here eager to have some fun with you." "Go to hell, Mike," I said, my voice filled with anger, "and everyone at your party, including my cheating wife. I hope you all suffer a terrible fate." I hung up the phone and went inside. It took me less than 20 minutes to pack 2 suitcases with enough clothes for a week or 2. I grabbed my laptop and razor, and packed everything into the car. I found our marriage certificate and tore it into pieces. Then I used a hammer to flatten my wedding ring. It took a few hits, but once I did, I placed the pieces on Mary's pillow, locked the door, got in the car, and disappeared into the night. I wanted to find a motel a few miles away, but first, I went to the McLaren's house. Some cars had already left the party, and some people were chatting outside. They were pairing up for the night. I didn't see Mary, so I guessed she had either left with her new partner or was with Mr. McLaren himself. The motel I found was in the next town. It didn't look fancy, but it had a backyard parking lot, which would keep my car out of sight if someone happened to be looking for me. After making sure the car was secure, I bought 6 cans of beer from the convenience store next door and decided to watch TV. The first 2 cans of beer calmed me down, and as I opened the third, my phone rang. It was Mary, but since I knew she wasn't calling to ask me to pick her up, I let it go to voicemail. "Joe, you're making too much of this," Mary said in the voicemail. "Mike Wilson told me what you said to him. I've told you a million times, it's just for one night. I'm just trying something new with a man, and that doesn't make me a bad person. I promise that even if I'm a little sore, I'll make it up to you when I come home tomorrow. Since you took our house keys out of the bowl, they made a new one for me. The man who got it is named Glenn, and he seems nice. He's married with kids, just like us. Since you're at our house, he and I, his wife, and her date went back to their home. But they're in different parts of the house, far enough away that when things get intense, we won't hear each other. You know how loud I can get when we're together." She giggled, listening. "I know you're not happy, but I promise I won't let him do things we haven't done. I expressed to Glenn that we should keep our interactions straightforward and clear. You know, maybe just some basic interaction patterns." He agreed, especially considering it's my first time being with someone else. He promised to escort me back to our place the next day, and I promised to clean up thoroughly before coming home to avoid leaving any careless traces and ensuring there's no second lapse of carelessness. "Sweet dreams, my dear. See you in the morning." A wave of nausea washed over me. I never realized I had married such a foolish woman. Indeed, Mary had always been a bit slow, but that was part of her charm. However, now her slowness was fully exposed, and it not only destroyed our marriage, but might even affect our children. She couldn't possibly think that after letting another man have her, I would accept her back into my life. I was sure everyone at the party was enjoying themselves at my expense. I felt angry, hurt, and embarrassed, while my wife seemed to care nothing about it. I knew I should ignore her message, but I couldn't. I called her back, and she answered on the third ring. "Hey, darling, Glenn and I just got settled in bed, so I can't talk long." Her voice was filled with feigned sweetness. "Shut up, Mary," my voice was filled with anger. "This might be the last time you hear from me. You don't understand what you've done, but you will soon realize it. Enjoy your time with Glenn because the consequences that follow will be much worse than you think. Clear, Mary? Once Glenn touches you, our marriage is over. Do you hear what I'm saying? I never thought I would say such words, but I hate you, and this hatred surpasses the love I once had for you." I continued, my voice filled with pain and betrayal. "I can't wait to get rid of you completely. My lawyer will contact you next week." I hung up the phone, and she called back within 30 seconds. I let her call go to voicemail. "Joe, why are you doing this?" Mary said in the voicemail, sounding like she was about to cry. "How can you say those things to me? I'm your wife. You can't leave me. We have 3 children who need us. Why did you tear up our marriage certificate and smash your wedding ring? I gave you that ring on our wedding day, and you promised to wear it forever. It symbolizes our eternal love. I know you might be a little upset with me, but I never thought you would go this far. Frank, I love you deeply. But I really needed that special night with Glenn. It meant a lot to me. He made me feel alive and young again. I forgot how exciting it is to laugh and scream at the same time. But as incredible as last night was, Frank, you are the only man for me. I know how to make it up to you. To ease your pain, please come home so I can show you how much I love you and get things back on track." She started crying again, making it hard to hear her words. "Frank, why can't you see that I just needed one night with someone new to feel desired and needed again? It was just a moment, Frank, nothing more. Please, Frank, talk to me. I love you, and you and our children mean everything to me." Her voice grew weaker, and she continued to cry until the message ended. I stood outside the restaurant, utterly shocked. Had Mary been hiding these feelings throughout our entire marriage, only to suddenly display them in her 30s? Mary was still beautiful, standing at 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighing 130 pounds, with deep golden hair cascading to her shoulders and light blue eyes. She had an excellent figure, with breasts that were just the right size. Although her hips were slightly wider after giving birth to 3 children, she would attract people's attention wherever she went. So, what was this nonsense about needing to be desired by another man? I had always shown her how much I loved her, surprising her with flowers, taking her out on dates at least once a week, and telling her every day how beautiful she was, how much I loved her. Our intimate relationship had always been great, or at least I thought it was. We made love at least 3 times a week, and I always made sure she had one or more orgasms. I lost my appetite, but I still walked into the restaurant. I found an empty table, ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I hardly touched my breakfast, but I at least drank 6 cups of coffee. I had never felt so lost, empty, and shattered. I had heard people say they wished they were dead, and now I understood what they meant. The only thing that kept me going was my children. I had to live for them. I had to get through this living nightmare created by Mary and build a future for them. This thought alone filled me with determination. I would persevere. That day, Mary called me about 20 times, but I always let it go voicemail. She pleaded for understanding but never apologized for her actions, never admitted she was wrong. Instead, she insisted that she needed that night, and it was my responsibility to support her. They had been intimate 3 times that night and once more the next morning. She mentioned being worried that her phone hadn't been turned off in time, and I might have overheard them. The first one was just after Glenn finished work, and she hoped I hadn't heard too much. She really knew how to hurt me deeply, and I couldn't believe she could be so stupid. However, on the bright side, I now had solid audio evidence of her infidelity, which could be used against her in court. Although I wasn't sure if it was enough, the recording was very convincing, leaving no room for doubt. I planned to find a good lawyer the next day and gather all the necessary information. I went to my mother's house to see my children. She told me that Mary had called to inquire about the children and asked where I was. Mom explained that I was upset about what had happened and didn't want to see or talk to Mary. Apparently, Mary started crying, saying I didn't understand. Mom told her that no man could understand a wife flaunting an affair in front of her husband. Mary asked if she should pick up the children, but Mom suggested they stay a few more days until things settled down. The children were happy to see me, but they wondered where their mother was. I told them she was busy with something very important to her, and they would stay with Grandma for a while longer. We played together, had dinner together, and then I hugged and kissed them goodbye, returning to my motel. Tomorrow would be a busy day. Before it ended, I had one more thing to do, more like a quick drive-by. When I saw my house, tears welled up again. I cried for what was lost, knowing it was gone forever. I was surprised to see no unfamiliar cars in the driveway, although there might be one in the garage. Seeing only the downstairs kitchen light on made me think Mary was at least alone tonight. Then I thought, I still have feelings for her. No, I won't take her back because of what she did, but imagining her betraying me with another man made me deeply pained. I tried to resist the urge to spy on her, but I gave in. I parked the car a block away and walked back to peek through the kitchen window. She was sitting at the table with an empty vodka bottle next to her. Her hair was disheveled, and mascara was running down her face. She was wearing a bathrobe, her head resting on the table with her eyes closed. It was clear she was crying, surrounded by a pile of tissues. For a moment, I felt sorry for her, but then I remembered her betrayal, and my sympathy disappeared. I wanted to vent, but instead, I walked back to my car and drove away. There was a sense of satisfaction. Maybe she was starting to realize the seriousness of her actions. If she wanted sympathy, she could call her lover Glenn. Monday came early, and I had a busy schedule at the restaurant. I ate eggs, toast, and coffee, and this time I finished everything. Afterward, I called my mom and spoke to each child, reassuring them of my love and promising to see them soon. Then, I contacted work and told my executive assistant that I would be handling personal matters for the next few days. I let her know that if there was an emergency, she could call me or text me. She sensed something was wrong, but I didn't go into detail, promising to explain later. In my last year of college, I shared an apartment with 2 good friends, John and Mark. We formed a strong bond, and although we didn't meet often, we have kept in touch over the years. My major was computer science, John studied business management, and Mark pursued a legal career. I first called John and asked if he and Mark could meet me for a drink around 5. I needed their advice on a serious issue, and John agreed to contact Mark. We arranged to meet at a bar by the beach. I arrived early, and around 5, Mark showed up, with John arriving 10 minutes later. We greeted each other warmly and found a suitable spot on the terrace to sit down, ordered drinks, and toasted. "What's going on, Joe?" John asked with concern, noticing that your phone call seemed quite serious. "Mary has been unfaithful to me and made sure I found out about it." I confided the whole story to them. "This is just terrible," John said, shocked. "I can't even imagine her doing something like this." Mark also expressed his surprise. "But she did, without any shame or regret. She even thinks I'm overreacting." I said, shaking my head. "Can you believe it?" "So, what are you going to do, Joe?" Mark asked, sipping his beer. "I want a divorce. I want to teach Glenn a lesson, whoever he is, and the others at the party." I replied firmly, "Most importantly, I want custody of my children." "Getting custody might not be easy, Joe," Mark warned, "unless she's a negligent mother. If she often brings strange men home, cheats in front of the children, then you might have a case. Otherwise, if she's usually a good mother, she's likely to get custody, and you may have to pay child support." "I can handle it, as long as I can be with the children at any time," I replied, and Mark nodded in understanding. "The court usually wants both parents to be involved, and it's also good for the children if they're both suitable parents," he explained. "What about the financial aspect?" John asked. "It's key. Mary stays at home to take care of the children, and you're likely to have a 6-figure income. What's in your account? Checks, savings, investments, 401 giga? It might add up to about $700,000 or $800,000, maybe more. The court might divide these assets equally, giving Mary the house and custody," Mark added. "But if you can prove she had an affair, it might be beneficial to your case, and you might not have to pay alimony. Do you know a good divorce lawyer?" I asked. Mark did. One of the partners of his firm was one of the top family lawyers in Texas, named Lisa, and he was willing to help me arrange a meeting. We toasted again, had a few more drinks, and said goodnight. As I drove back to my motel, my mind was filled with the tasks ahead. My phone rang, and seeing the caller ID, I knew it was Mary. After a brief hesitation, I pulled over to answer. "What is it, Mary?" I asked bluntly. "What do you think I want, Joe?" she replied, with a false sweetness in her voice. "I want my husband to come home, where he belongs." "Unfortunately, Mary, your little adventure with Glenn made that impossible," I replied firmly. She suddenly started crying. "Don't say that, Joe, you can't," she pleaded. "It was just one night away from you, in 10 years, it's not enough for a divorce. Think about it again, Mary," I said, my voice cold and firm. When a married woman sleeps with someone new, whether it's for one night or 1 second, it's considered adultery. I warned you countless times, every word I said was serious. You brought this upon yourself. God, please, Joe, you can't do this to me. She cried, but I didn't budge. You can't do this to our children. She added, but I knew I was doing this for them. You tore our family apart with your selfishness, Mary. I said, my voice filled with pain and betrayal. You shattered our lives into irreparable pieces. First, Mary, you hurt my heart. You blatantly disregarded my feelings, for the man who has loved you unconditionally since the day we met, the man who works hard every day to provide you and the children with the life you desire. You betrayed me, to be with a stranger, disregarding the vows we made in front of our family, friends, and God 10 years ago. You promised me your body, Mary, and last night you made it clear that you would do what you wanted, regardless of whether I liked it or not. I never intended for it to look like that, Joe. She said, but I knew every word I said. I didn't know why. I didn't realize I hurt you. I just wanted to try something new. I love you, Joe. It's not about you, Mary. I replied, my voice filled with disbelief. It's about you and Glenn. Without considering me or our children, you feel you deserve a special night, just for yourself. By doing this, you've torn our family apart. You've made yourself lose my marriage and possibly damaged your reputation among family and friends. Perhaps one day I will forgive you, but I will never forget, and I will make sure everyone knows what you've done." "No, Joe, please," she cried. "My parents will be devastated. You can't do this to me." "I'm sorry, Mary, but you should have thought before you acted," I replied, and then I hung up the phone. I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing I stood up for myself and my children. I also felt a sense of relief, knowing I had taken the first step to move on from this nightmare. The next day, I met the divorce lawyer Lisa, recommended by Mark. She was straightforward and to the point, quickly getting to the heart of the matter. She wanted to know why I was seeking a divorce and what I hoped to achieve from it. I explained that I expected to divide my assets with Mary, possibly giving her our house in exchange for less cash. I also admitted that despite filing on the grounds of adultery, the likelihood of getting full custody of my children was slim. However, I insisted on having unrestricted access to them and avoiding alimony payments. I played the audio evidence I had of Mary's betrayal, where she admitted her actions with Glenn. Lisa shook her head in disbelief, finding it hard to believe that my wife had been so careless as to admit her affair in voicemails that could be used against her in court. "We might need a voice recognition expert to confirm that it's your wife's voice," she explained, "but unless we encounter an unreasonable judge, these recordings should be accepted as evidence." We spent the rest of our time discussing my targets regarding Glenn and the others at the wife-swapping party. She doubted we could win any money from them, but she promised to find a way to publicly expose their activities and embarrass them enough to hurt them. I told her that would be satisfying for me. I paid her retainer and asked her to serve Mary as soon as possible. She assured me it wouldn't take long and promised to notify me before Tuesday afternoon. I picked up the children from my mom's house and took them back to Mary's, where she warmly embraced and kissed them, then extended her hand to me, but I stepped back, letting her cry and plead for me to stay. I explained I couldn't, but I thought it best for the children to be with her at home. I planned to pick them up for the weekend on Friday. Mary seemed to struggle, and I sympathized with her, but she brought this upon herself, and her tough times were no worse than what I had been through because of her. On Wednesday, I returned to work. I knew I couldn't neglect my job. I needed it more than ever, not just for the income but also for the mental distraction. If I indulged too much in the pain of Mary's betrayal and self-pity, I feared I would lose my mind, something I couldn't allow for the sake of my children. On Thursday, I met with John and Mark again, this time for dinner at a restaurant near the beach. I updated them on the situation with my children and the divorce proceedings, and John had some good news for me. He had been looking for ways to protect some of my money, and he found a method that didn't risk breaking the law. He explained that I could put some of my money into a trust for my children, which would be considered their property, not mine, so in the case of a divorce, the money would be protected, and my children could still benefit from it. I was grateful for his help and agreed to proceed with his plan. Together, we came up with a simple plan to stir up the wife-swapping club without risking legal trouble. Mark had a friend who was a journalist at the local newspaper, and he believed that if I could provide the time of the McLaren's home and the wife-swapping group's meetings, he could expose some of the participants' names. Mark suggested that his friend could write an editorial revealing that wife-swapping is more common in our town than people realize, by implying the involvement of certain business owners without explicitly naming them, and by taking photos of couples entering and leaving the meetings, we could create enough controversy to cause problems for the group. I shared the limited information I had, and Mark agreed to start investigating. We planned to launch, said our goodbyes, and parted until next time. The weekend with the children was wonderful. We went shopping for new clothes, watched a movie at the cinema, and spent a whole day at the beach, swimming and playing frisbee. My children are my top priority, and I promised myself that no matter what happens, I will always be there for them. On Monday morning, Mark called with some exciting news. His friend, the journalist, liked the idea of the story and was already working on ways to take photos of couples entering and leaving the McLaren's home. Even if their faces were blurred, people could quickly recognize them in a small town like ours. If all goes well, the report is expected to make the front page of the newspaper this weekend. I always maintained a positive attitude, looking forward to the successful implementation of our plan and bringing the wife-swapping group the attention they deserve. On Wednesday, my lawyer informed me that Mary had received the divorce papers at home on Friday morning. Immediately after, John called with more exciting news. He had found a way to secure my children's interests by setting up about 1/3 of my assets as a trust fund, and had already started the process. Finally, Mark also called to inform me that his friend found out that the wife-swapping couples planned to hold another meeting at the McLaren's home on Friday night. He planned to take photos from an unmarked van parked across the street, documenting everyone who entered and left the house. He also hoped to interview me again about the party, and I agreed to meet with him on Saturday. If everything goes as planned, the report will be published in the newspaper next week, causing a sensation in our small town. I felt better than ever because I had taken measures to protect myself and my children while exposing the existence of the wife-swapping group. By Friday, I was waiting for the call that Mary might make after receiving the divorce papers. As I expected, the call came right on time at 2:30 in the afternoon. My lawyer informed me that the papers had been delivered, and soon after, my phone rang again, and the caller ID made me realize it was Mary. I laughed sarcastically to myself, guessing her initial intentions. I had considered sending the call to voicemail, but in the end, I decided to answer. "Hey, Mary, what's up?" I asked. Her voice was not friendly, questioning me. "Joe, what have you done?" I replied that, as I said, I filed for divorce. She retorted that she had told me there would be no divorce because I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery. She sharply asked, "Isn't spending a night with another man adultery?" I calmly and firmly stated that according to Texas law, having sexual relations with someone other than one's spouse is considered adultery, and Glenn indeed had relations with you. Her eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. She asked me why I was so cruel. I replied that I loved her. Glenn was just a few intimate encounters. It was just a little episode. It was my fault, Mary. My voice was filled with sarcasm. I must have misunderstood. Intimate relationships outside of marriage are not adultery. How could I have been wrong? She pleaded to put down the phone, saying I had warned and pleaded with her many times not to do this, but she did it anyway. My voice grew colder with each word, telling her that she now had to face the consequences, and soon she would realize that the trouble was not over. I decisively said goodbye and hung up the phone. Despite this, I still have feelings for Mary, maybe forever, but I can no longer trust her. I can't continue a marriage with someone who has betrayed me. I knew I shouldn't go to the McLaren's house on Friday night, but I couldn't help driving by once to see what was happening. I also wanted to confirm if Mary's car was there, although I doubted whether she would attend the party this time. Her car was not there, but she might have gone with someone else. They usually only allow couples to participate, but they had made an exception for her, so maybe they would do it again. I noticed a van parked across the street. Likely the journalist was there. I hope he can expose them, and the results will come out soon. The next afternoon, Mark's journalist friend called and asked for some insider information, which I was happy to provide. He mentioned that he had taken more than 100 photos and recognized more than a dozen famous couples from the city. Strangely, they were not the last couple to leave the residence. Mark gave him a photo of my wife, and he confirmed that she was not among those entering or leaving the McLaren's home. He wanted me to describe what I saw and experienced at the Duran's home and as a key party of the key party. I tried my best to explain how the keys were put into a bowl, although I had never seen the men pick the keys and take the keys belonging to the women. From my wife's description and other couples' talks about past parties, I had a good understanding of what happened. Before we ended the call, he asked if he could imply that he knew of a marriage that ended because of the party, leaving the children to deal with their parents' divorce. I said he could, as long as no names were mentioned. The article was published in the Sunday newspaper, causing a great sensation. It became the front page news with a big photo of couples entering and leaving, their faces blurred. The story continued on the next 4 pages with many additional photos. Despite the efforts to hide faces, it was easy to identify the participants from their cars and clothes, as they were prominent members of our small-town society. By Monday, the story had become the talk of the town, with several ministers commenting on the decline of morality, civic leaders condemning the situation, and lawsuits filed with no results. Some businesses lost customers, and many couples eventually ended up in divorce court. To me, all of this was fitting in revenge for the pain I endured from losing my wife and family, and even though people realized I had been deceived, I didn't care. I had my revenge, and that was what mattered most. Mary had been trying to win me back for months, but I made my decision firmly. The divorce was finalized, and I got joint custody of our children. We share time with the kids. When I have them for a month, Mary has them on weekends, and vice versa. It's not ideal, but we've managed because Mary didn't contest anything in the divorce. I decided not to share the recording of her admitting to the affair with her family or friends. As for the couples involved in the key party, some ended up getting divorced and leaving town, perhaps because of the scandal. Mary has started dating again, and though I'm not sure she fully understands how much her actions hurt me, that's her issue, and I wish her future husband good luck. I've dated some wonderful women, but haven't found the right person to settle down with yet. Some suggest cohabitation, but I'm still cautious about giving a woman the keys to my home. It's been a tough year, but I've grown stronger. I've learned a lot about myself and what I want in a partner. I've also learned that as long as I have my children by my side, I can handle any challenges life throws at me. I know I'll never forget what Mary did, but I also know I must continue living my life. I can't let her actions define me or prevent me from seeking happiness again. As I sit on the beach, watching my children play in the sand, I feel a sense of peace. I know that as long as I have family and friends around me, everything will be all right. I take a deep breath of the salty air, smiling, knowing that the future is bright and full of possibilities. I'm ready to face any challenges, knowing I'll grow stronger, and who knows, maybe one day I'll find a woman who loves me and my children, a woman who would never betray me or our family. But until then, I'm content with my life and the love that surrounds me. I watch the horizon as the sun slowly sinks into the ocean, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. It's a beautiful sight, and I'm grateful for the simple things in life. As the sun disappears below the horizon, I gather my children, ready to face whatever tomorrow may bring. I know I'm a survivor, and nothing can defeat me, not even a cheating wife. I start the car, pull out of the parking lot, and head towards an uncertain but hopeful future. I know I have everything I need to be happy, and that's enough for me. As I drive down the highway, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the rearview mirror. I look older, wiser, and stronger than ever before. I smile at myself, knowing I'm ready for whatever life has in store for me. With that thought, I turn on the radio, sing along to the music, let the wind blow through my hair, and let the worries of the past fade away into the night. I am free, and nothing can stop me anymore. Thank you for watching. See you next time.